Alright, so in this video we will learn how to join your knitting in the round. So as you can see, I've done a cast on. I'm going to make a hat. And the first thing I want to do before I join it in the round is just make sure that my cast on isn't twisted. So you can basically just start at one end of your needle and just make sure that your little edge there is all going the same direction. Oh my goodness, look at this. It's twisting out a little bit. So you can just twist it back in. There we go. And now the edge is all going the same direction. And that's always an important first step because it's kind of a pain to deal with if you don't notice that it's twisted. So once we have our cast on oriented correctly, you have a couple of different options for how to join it in the round. One of the ones I use is using both the yarn tail and the yarn to knit for a couple stitches. So if you want to do that, then you take your row marker. I usually use yarn as a row marker instead of the little plastic rings because sometimes on smaller gauge yarns those can actually create a seam. Anyway, so you put your row marker on and then you go ahead and, like I said, you're going to knit 2 stitches with both your tail and your yarn. So you just go ahead and knit. After you knit the first stitch, you just want to make sure to kind of pull on both of those strands, cinch it up, because otherwise sometimes you can get a gap there. And you'll go ahead, knit a second stitch, and then you just need to locate your tail. Here's my tail, and make sure that I am knitting with my yarn instead of my tail from then on. And then when you hit this point on your next row, you just need to remember that your first 2 stitches will have 2 strands of yarn and just to knit those each as regular stitches. Okay, so that's the first method to join in the round. Another good method that I like, and I'm just going to demonstrate the 2 that I like. There are other ones that I'm less fond of. So let me undo this here. Okay, so the other one is the stitch swap. So in this one, what we're going to do, once again, orient your knitting, make sure that your cast on's not twisted. And then you will go ahead and I usually take the last stitch on my right hand needle, I put it over here onto my left hand needle, and then I use the tip of my needle to lift up the first stitch, or what was your first cast on stitch, lift it over that last stitch. This is, sorry, I use small yarn here so it's harder to see. Lift it over that last stitch so that you've effectively swapped the first and last stitches. As you can see, that's pulled this stitch out, so you're going to need to make sure that you pull it back in so you don't create a big gap in your knitting. And once again, you can just go ahead and place your row marker and then knit from there. So, like I said, those are my 2 favorite ways to join in the round, and you can just experiment and see what method you prefer.